For years, the sport moved to one man's rhythm. When Muhammad Ali stepped into a ring, the room didn't just watch, it followed. Opponents reached where he wanted them to reach. Crowds leaned forward before anything even happened. It felt less like a contest and more like weather, a storm moving across the arena. But storms don't stop all at once. Sometimes the wind changes first. Sometimes the pressure drops before anyone understands why. And over the years, 3 men found 3 different ways to make that storm lose its rhythm. Number 3 built a wall the storm couldn't move through. Number 2 turned the air into steel. And number 1 closed the door on the whole machine. Some fans still argue about that last one. But if you sit with the footage long enough, something becomes hard to ignore. The rhythm changed. 3 opponents. 3 cracks in the system. And it didn't happen the same way twice. To understand those 3 nights, you have to understand the machine first. Ali didn't just beat people. He controlled the atmosphere. When he moved, the room moved with him. Opponents didn't feel like they were fighting a man. It felt more like chasing a shadow that kept pulling the distance away from them. You could see it in the early rounds of so many fights. A challenger would step forward, confident, shoulders tight with energy. 30 seconds later, something strange happened. The rhythm slipped. Ali wasn't standing where the other man expected him to be. He wasn't reacting to the fight. He was guiding it. The distance opened when he wanted space. The distance closed when he wanted pressure. And the other man slowly started walking instead of deciding. That was the system. Not power. Not anger. Control. He made opponents walk into the wrong moments. He broke their rhythm before they even realized they had one. Sometimes the crowd could feel it before the fighters did. The noise would rise, then suddenly drop. You could feel the air leave the building, because everyone in the room sensed the same thing. The fight had tilted. Ali wasn't chasing the fight. The fight was chasing him. That's what made the machine so hard to stop. Most opponents tried to win exchanges. Others tried to speed things up. But 3 men did something different. They didn't try to outrun the storm. They tried to interrupt it. One of them forced the body into a kind of pressure it couldn't avoid. Another made the rhythm hesitate. And the last one changed the structure of the entire room. 3 different nights. 3 different kinds of silence. The first crack came from a man who didn't move like a storm at all. He moved like a wall. The arena felt loud that night, but it wasn't the usual excitement. It was something heavier. When Ali walked into the room, the energy followed him the way it always did. Heads turned, cameras leaned forward. People expected the rhythm to start soon because that's what usually happened. The room was supposed to move at his speed. You expected to see the storm pick up and carry everyone away. But across the ring stood a man who didn't care about the storm. Joe Frazier didn't chase the rhythm. He walked straight into it. Think about that for a second. Most people try to dance with Ali. Frazier just walked. Slow steps, short steps, forward, always forward. At first, nothing seemed unusual to the folks in the cheap seats. Ali circled. The crowd reacted to every movement like they were watching a master at work. It looked familiar, but if you were sitting close, you could see something underneath the surface had changed. Frazier wasn't reacting to the fakes. He wasn't chasing the moment. He was building pressure. Frazier was like a wall slowly moving across a living room. You don't notice it at first, but suddenly the furniture feels a little too close together. Ali tried to pull the distance. Normally, the space opened up exactly when he wanted it to. It was like he had a remote control for the air between him and the other guy. But that night, the space didn't open. Frazier kept coming. Not faster, not louder, just closer. You could see the body language begin to shift. Ali still moved beautifully, sure, but he was starting to move more often. Step, step, step again. He was being forced to use his feet, not to create an opening, but just to find room to breathe. The storm was no longer drifting where it wanted. It was being pushed. The crowd began to feel it too. You know that moment in a theater when people stop eating their popcorn? The arena noise dropped for a second. You could feel the air change. Frazier wasn't trying to win moments or look good for the cameras. He was making Ali walk. He was making the king move his feet when the king wanted to stand still. Every step pushed the fight a little tighter. Every minute made the ring feel smaller, like the ropes were shrinking toward the center. That was the wall. It wasn't a single dramatic event. It was just pressure that never disappeared. Ali would hit the space where Frazier just was, but Frazier was already a step closer. Ali shifted left, and the wall followed. There were flashes where the old rhythm returned, moments when the storm tried to spin again and take control of the house. But the wall didn't care about storms. It kept moving. Slow, relentless, forward. Believe me, the people in that building knew they were seeing something they weren't supposed to see. They were seeing the machine struggle with its own weight. Frazier didn't have to be faster than Ali. He just had to be more constant. He turned the floor into an uphill climb that never ended. That was the first crack. The machine had its first real problem. For the first time, the storm couldn't choose where the fight lived. Someone else was deciding where the room moved. It was a physical grind that stripped away the glamour. But as tough as that was, pressure on the body was only the beginning. Frazier made him walk, but the next man made him doubt. The next opponent didn't build a wall. He changed the shape of the air itself. Bạn nghĩ phần này có hay hơn bạn viết không có giữ chân người xem tốt không, và đặc biệt hơn đó là người nghe qua là hiểu cơ cần suy nghĩ. If number 3 was a wall, number 2 was steel. A wall pushes you. Steel makes you hesitate. That night felt different before anything even happened. The arena wasn't buzzing the way it usually did when Muhammad Ali walked in. There was curiosity in the air. People remembered the pressure from the last great war. They expected speed. They expected the storm to start moving again. At first glance, it looked familiar. Ali stepped into the light. The crowd leaned forward. The rhythm was supposed to begin. But across the ring stood a man who wasn't trying to chase that rhythm. Ken Norton wasn't walking forward like a wall. He was standing there in a way that made the whole room feel strange. Not aggressive. Not quiet. Just wrong. You could see it in the first exchanges. Ali moved the way he always did. Light on his feet, relaxed. But Norton was standing the wrong way. Not square. Not comfortable. Almost like a door that opened from the opposite side. For a moment, Ali paused. Just a moment. Most people in the cheap seats didn't notice it. But the people close to the ring saw it clearly. The storm had slowed for half a second. Norton didn't rush in. He didn't try to overpower the moment. Instead, he did something simpler. He locked the entry. Every time Ali tried to pull the distance, Norton was already standing in the path. Not chasing, not reacting, just blocking the door. It felt strange to watch. Ali was still moving beautifully, but he wasn't guiding the rhythm anymore. He was checking it. You could see the hesitation in small ways. A step that paused. A glance that lasted a little longer. A movement that came half a beat late. The crowd felt it too. The noise dropped again. You could feel the air leave the building. Because when Ali hesitated, the entire room hesitated. That had never been part of the system. Ali's machine was built on certainty, on making the other man unsure. But Norton had flipped the mirror. Now Ali was the one adjusting. Now Ali was the one calculating the space. Norton didn't need to be faster. He just needed to keep the door closed. Every time Ali tried to open the rhythm again, the steel was there. Unmoving, cold, unimpressed by the storm. There were moments when Ali tried to bring the fight back to life. You could see the flashes, the old rhythm trying to spin up again. But the steel kept interrupting the machine. It didn't stop the engine. Not completely. But something inside it had changed. The machine didn't move freely anymore. It checked the gears first. Some fans won't agree. They'll say, Ali still won the war that mattered. But watch the rhythm. It wasn't the same rhythm anymore. The machine had learned something new that night. It could hesitate, and hesitation inside a machine like Ali's was dangerous. Because once a system begins to question itself, the next crack can reach deeper. Frazier had pushed the body. Norton had touched the mind. But the last opponent did something far more unsettling. He didn't push. He didn't confuse. He changed who controlled the room. If the last one stalled the engine, this one locked the door. Listen, if you were in the arena that night, the first thing you noticed wasn't the noise. It was the silence. Usually when Ali walks out, the room feels like it's about to explode. But this time, the air felt thin, cold. It was like everyone in the building knew they were about to watch something they couldn't take back. Ali stepped into the light, and for a second, you wanted to believe. You wanted to believe the storm could just whistle and start spinning again. But look at the man standing across from him. Larry Holmes wasn't a wall, and he wasn't a block of steel. He was the understudy who had memorized every single line of the play. In the first few minutes, you saw the ghost of the old system. Ali tried to pull the distance. He tried to create that invisible gap where he's safe and you're frustrated. But the distance wouldn't pull. Every time Ali moved back an inch, Holmes was already there, occupying that inch. It was the most unsettling thing I've ever seen in a ring. It was like Ali was trying to walk through his own house, but someone had changed all the locks while he was out. The rhythm didn't just slow down this time. It stopped. You could see it in Ali's eyes. He'd throw a move that used to make the whole world miss, but Holmes didn't miss. Holmes wasn't chasing the storm, he was standing right in the eye of it, perfectly calm. He was locking the entry before Ali could even think about stepping through. Think about a master key. For 15 years, Ali had the master key to every room he walked into. He decided when the fight started, when it ended, and how fast it moved. But that night, the key didn't turn. He was standing in front of a door that used to swing open at his command, and it just stayed shut. The crowd went dead silent. You could feel the air leave the building, but it wasn't the excited silence of Frazier's fight, or the confused silence of Norton's. This was the silence of a funeral. You were watching a man realize in real time that he no longer owned the space around him. Ali's machine was built on controlling the room. If he couldn't make you miss, and he couldn't make you hesitate, the system had nothing left. It was a structural failure. Not a crack in the glass, but the entire foundation giving way. He would try to reset to find that old beat, but Holmes would interrupt it immediately. Not with power, but with presence. Holmes was making him walk, but it wasn't the walk of a man being pushed. It was the walk of a man being escorted out of his own building. There was one moment, I'll never forget it, where Ali tried to shuffle. Just a flash. A flicker of the old magic. The crowd started to gasp, wanting to see the king one last time, but Holmes just stepped in and took the space away. No drama, no struggle, just a click of a lock. The door was closed. Some fans won't agree. They'll tell you Ali was just a shadow of himself that night. They'll say he was past his prime and shouldn't have been there at all. And look, they're right about the age. But that's the easy answer. The real answer is in the rhythm. Even an old Ali usually found a way to make the room move with him for a minute or two. Not that night. The control had changed hands. The room didn't belong to the storm anymore. It belonged to the man who knew how the storm was built. That wasn't a crack in the machine. That was the system shutting down. The lights in the arena were still on, but for the first time in history, the machine had been unplugged. The king was still in the ring, but the room had already moved on. That was the final door. And once it was locked, it never opened the same way again. So there you have it. 3 men, 3 ways to stop a storm. Looking back now, it's easy to remember Muhammad Ali as a machine people thought would never slow down. But even the greatest systems have a limit. It started with Joe Frazier the Wall. He didn't try to outsmart the storm. He just kept pushing it back. He made the king walk. And for the first time, the machine had to carry weight it didn't want to carry. Then came Ken Norton, the steel. He didn't push the body. He touched the mind. He stood the wrong way. He locked the entry. And he made the most confident man in the sport hesitate. Then came Larry Holmes, the locked door. He didn't bend the system. He shut it down. He took the keys to the room and changed the locks. That night, the music stopped, and the air went cold. Some people will say it was age. Others will call it timing. A few will say it was just the way the sport works. But if you watch the room, you can see what really changed. The body got pushed. The mind got slowed. And then the whole system stopped obeying the man who built it. Ali is still the greatest. That doesn't change. But those 3 men found 3 different ways to break the rhythm. And that matters. Because no matter how powerful the storm looks, someone eventually finds a way to stand in the right place and make it lose its shape. The real question is this: who's doing that to the kings of today? That's a story for another coffee. Believe me, the rhythm always changes. You just have to know where to look.